Alright, so in the previous lesson, we have discussed the importance of what we call the review of related literature. Naunawaan natin na yung mga binabasa natin in the past as well as the studies related to our topic is important for us to determine what would be our problem as well as our proposal project. Okay? So now we are planning to have our research. We have uploaded all of our materials as well as our proposal, right? And then every time that we have an asynchronous activity, we make sure that it is related to your topic. Right? So before constructing a home, a builder acquires or develops detailed set of plans. Okay, sabi dito, no? Bago tayo magtayo ng bahay, importante na meron muna tayong plano. Okay. So gaya sa paggawa ng research, importante na meron muna tayong plano. Okay? Kung kayo ay magiging engineer, kung kayo man ay magiging architect, kung kayo man ay magiging software developer, importante meron muna tayong plano sa isip. Kung ano ang gagawin natin in order for us to execute something or a project. Halimbawa, gusto ninyo halimbawa gumawa ng assignment ninyo, i-picture out muna ninyo ano yung magiging kalalabasan ng inyong project. Okay? So can you give some example of plans that you have in the near future? Ano yung mga plano ninyo kapag kayo ay graduate ng UMS? O kaya naman, ano yung plano ninyo 5 years from now? Magtatrabaho na ba kayo? Kayo ba ay nag-aaral pa rin? Okay? So, ano mga plano ninyo kapag 5 years from now? Sige nga. Dapat meron tayong plano, di ba? Kahit na mga estudyante pa lang tayo, meron tayong plano. Sige, to be added as your recitation for this morning. Sige, anong plano ninyo 5 years from now? Sir, ako po, ganito ang plano ko po. Yan. Sir, ako po, gusto ko po makatulong po sa pamilya ko po after po ng klase ko po, pagdatas ko po ng degree ko po. Kapag nakuha ko na po yung degree ko po sa college, yan. Gusto ko na po magkaroon ng trabaho. Yan. Nakikita ninyo yung sarili ninyo sa ganitong aspeto o kaya naman sa ganitong pagtatrabaho o kaya naman sa ganitong field of expertise. So guys, sa research, no, meron tayong mga plano muna. So kayo, ano mga plano ninyo? Sige, to be added as your recitation for this morning. Okay, so how to frame the walls, roof, where to put doors and windows of various sizes. Okay guys, sa pagre-research, meron tayong mga plano, ano yung magagamitin natin materyales. Nag-estimate tayo, feasible ba, kasya ba sa budget natin, yung mga gagawin natin mga plano. So where to put pipes and electrical wiring. So guys, sa bahay, no, meron tayong mga detalye na dapat kino-consider natin before we actually buy materials. Hindi yung kolekta lang tayo ng kolekta ng mga bagay para dun sa bahay natin, and then eventually hindi natin sinukat muna. Kasya ba itong ref na ito sa side na ito? Kasya ba itong sofa na to sa paglalagyan ko? Diba? So these are the things that we consider before we actually buy, before we actually acquire the materials. So guys, sa research, hindi tayo mangongolekta ng mga random details, hindi tayo mangongolekta ng mga random variables, hindi tayo mangongolekta ng mga bagay na hindi naman related o importante dun sa nire-research natin. Okay, so these plans enable the builder to erect a strong, well-designed structure. Yan. Ano kayang implication kapag bumili tayo, kaya naman nag-acquire tayo ng mga bagay na hindi natin muna sinusukat, no? So likely madaling masira yung bahay na yun. O kaya naman hindi magtatagal yung structure na yun, magigiba din. O di ba may mga napapanood tayo mga vlogger na sila mismo yung nag-design ng kanilang mga bahay without the consultation coming from the professionals like the civil engineering or yung structural engineering. as well as the designer or yung architect. No? So they work hand in hand in order for us to deliver a good structure. Yan. So just like in research, no, we have to consult our professor, we have to consult a statistician, we have to consult a psychometrician in order for us to deliver what we have to do, with our project. So in this lesson, we have to distinguish between primary data and secondary data and describe variety of forms that data for a research project. So we want to compare quantitative versus qualitative research methodology in terms of typical purposes, data collection and strategies, data analysis, and nature of the final report. Yan. So yun yung mga dapat natin matutunan, as well as distinguishing research study, explaining different strategies or the levels of data that we have. We have nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio scale. Ayan. Familiar ba kayo sa mga terminology na yan? Yung nominal, ibig sabihin, merong pangalan yung mga variable natin. Okay? Ordinal, by order. Pag-usapan natin yung mamaya. And we also have to describe several different types of validity. Yan. Pag sinabi nating valid, di ba, pagpapasok kayo sa school, di ba nagpe-present kayo ng valid ID. Tama ba ang ID na pinipresent natin? Taga rito ka ba talaga? Taga ritong school ka ba talaga? O kaya naman, gusto mong sukatin kung gaano ka nakatangkad. Okay. Sino dito yung kapag every year, nag-BMI sila, o body mass index. Sine-check muna nila kung gaano na sila kalaki, o kaya naman anong improvement nila sa weight, ano yung improvement nila sa height, di ba? Anong ginagamit natin para masukat itong mga bagay na ito? Di ba? Tumutugtong tayo dun sa may tawag dito, dun sa kiluhan. O, titingnan natin, gano'n na ba yung gain ko na weight? Kasi madalas akong kumain rin bawa ng sweets. Ganyan. O kaya naman, napalakas yung kain ko ng mga nakaraang araw. Diba? O kaya naman, kung gusto nating malaman kung gano'n na tayo katangkad, gagamit tayo ng metro. O kaya naman yung measuring tool. So gaya dun sa natin, sa pag-measure natin, importante na valid yung measurement natin. Diba? Paano ba natin sinusukat ang binibili nating bigas? Di ba tinitimbang yon? Hindi naman natin pwedeng gamitin yung medida. Familiar ba kayo sa medida? Yung sinusukat kung gaano kahaba. Hindi naman sinusukat kung gaano kahaba, di ba? Ang sinusukat doon kung gaano kabigat. Di ba? Pareho silang pangsukat, oo. Pero tama ba yung pangsukat natin? Sino dito yung kapag ka nagsasaing, ginagamit yung kamay? Minsan rin to, minsan accurate din to paggamit ng kamay, di ba? Kapag ka nag-measure tayo, sinusukat natin gamit yung kamay natin. O kaya naman, patansya-tansya, di ba? Ganun yung minsan ginagawa natin. So kapag ka sa research, hindi tayo tumatansya. Meron tayong measurement talaga in order for us to understand the personality. Halimbawa, kung gusto niyo malaman yung personality, o kaya naman variables involved. Di ba? O kaya naman sa skala, di ba? Kapag kaalamin ninyo kung ano yung age ng participant ninyo, yung mga respondent ninyo, gumagamit kayo ng categorization kung ilang taon na yung target respondent ninyo, lalagay kayo doon. Halimbawa, ang target respondent ninyo, 18 years old to 24 years old. Okay? So, hindi kayo maglalagay doon kung ano yung weight nila, ano yung height nila. Okay? So, dapat alam natin kung ano yung sinusukat natin. So, lalagay nyo doon yung age. Hindi nyo ilalagay doon kung anong weight nila. Kasi hindi naman yung hinahanap ninyo. Tama? So, gaya din sa research, importante na tama yung tools na ginagamit natin. Okay. We also want to discuss the ethical issues before we actually conduct a research. Pag sinabi nating ethical, tama ba yung procedure natin in terms of considering others or the respondents that we have? Hindi ba tayo nakakatapak ng karapatan o hindi ba tayo nakakapanakit ng ibang tao, emotionally man yan, o kaya naman psychological man yan, o physical man yan, di ba? Hindi gaya yan ng mga nagso-social experiment sa YouTube na parang walang consent ng mga respondent, di ba? Yung mga nagpa-prank minsan, hindi nila sinasabihan, syempre magpa-prank nga sila eh. Hindi nila sinasabihan yung respondent o yung target yung target na tao nila. So sa research, importante nasasabihan mo kung ano yung content ng research mo. Hindi yung magbibigay ka ng survey, pakisagutan po ito. Kasi po, required po sa school namin, hindi ganon. So, the respondent has to know whether these data that they will be giving to you will be used for what reason. Alamin natin kung para saan ba itong research na to. No? So, yan yung mga bagay na kinoconsider natin with ethical consideration. Kasi baka mamaya, may malabag kayo na karapatang pantao nila. Bawal pala sa religion nila. Binigyan mo ng intervention na bawal sa kanila. O kaya naman may sakit pala sa puso. O, di ba? Inatake habang nagre-research ka. Kasi may nabasa doon na triggering doon sa research sa research instrument mo, na trigger yung emotion niya, na trigger psychologically. O, di ba? Nung na-trigger, syempre, hindi na siya sasagot. O kayo halimbawa, gusto niyo ba yung kapag nagre-research yung researcher, tapos binigyan kayo halimbawa ng instrument or ng tool. Ma'am, pakisagutan po, di ba ang tendency natin minsan, lalayo tayo, o kaya naman, ay, hindi po, wag po. So, ganun yun, di ba? Sasabihin ninyo kung yung objective ninyo sa respondent ninyo para hindi sila maiilang kung bakit para saan ba itong ginagawa ninyo. O, di ba kapag pupunta kayo ng mall, sabihin natin, pagpunta kayo ng mall, tatanungin kayo kung okay lang ba nabigyan kayo ng tawag dito ng sample ng pagkain nila. O ito, i-introduce kung ano yung sample nila nagdala-dala. Sino dito yung pumupunta ng mall tapos nakikitikim ng mga free taste na ganyan. Diba? Kapag may free taste, ini-introduce muna yung product, ano yung laman ng product, di ba? O kaya yung kapag sa mall, di ba meron yung mga libreng pabango, di ba? Minsan ini-spray yan, o kaya naman, ma'am, ano po, pabango po, tapos po, yan, ito po ay gawa sa ganito, ganyan. Di ba parang nakakainis minsan yung kapag walang consent mo, tapos bibigyan ka ng intervention, nagulat ka na lang, yun na yun. Di ba? So just like in research, it is important for us to ask first our respondent. More likely, we have to give consent or may form yung mga yung consent na yan. Okay. So research design. So research design is a general strategy for solving a research problem. O, di ba? Napag-usapan na natin yung tungkol sa problema, napag-usapan na natin ano yung mga involved factors as well as consideration in order for us to answer the research problem. Now we are proceeding with the research design. What are the designs that we have in order for us to solve the problem? Are we going to use a correlational study? Are we going to use experimental study? Are we going to use correlational or descriptive study lamang? Now these, we have qualitative and quantitative research study. Okay? Nabanggit natin dati that we have two major categories, no? Yung qualitative at yung quantitative. Sige nga, kung naalala pa ninyo, kaya naman, kung na-research na ninyo, additional points for you. What is the difference between qualitative and quantitative research? Ano pagkakaiba nila? Sige nga. Yung pagkakaunawa lang ninyo, kahit yung Tagalog, kahit Tagalogin nyo lang yung answer ninyo, ano yung pagkakaunawa ninyo between these two design? Yung quantitative at qualitative. Pag sinabi natin quanti, pag sinabi naman natin quali, ano ibig sabihin nila? Sige, kung naalala pa ninyo, ilagay ninyo sa ating chat box para malaman natin kung sino pa yung nakakaalala. Of course, it has corresponding grade para sa inyo. Again, ano ang pagkakaiba ng quantitative at qualitative research? Now, planning a general approach. Okay. So in planning a general in planning, we have to ask ourselves what are the parts of our research, no? In terms of people, may involved ba na tao dito? Sino ba yung mga tao na kino-consider natin na participant natin? Let's say, for example, you want to consider respondent coming from PPC, o kaya naman respondent coming from other school, o kaya naman respondent coming from a company. Posible naman yun kung gusto niyo yung respondent taga-kumpanya. O kaya naman mga estudyante, as long as you will have consent form, di ba? Kapag magkoconduct kayo ng online survey form, of course, you have this consent na naka-indicate doon sa Google form ninyo in case you will be using this platform. That this study is about, you have to put all of your objective. Ano ba ang gusto ninyo makuha sa kanila? Ano ba ang mararating ng research na ito? Para saan ba ang research na ito? For educational purposes, to measure what? Of what? Okay? Sino ba yung mga target respondent ninyo? Okay? Sige nga. Sino ba yung mga target respondent ninyo sa mga study ninyo? Meron ba ditong ang respondent nila ay mga estudyante? O kaya meron ba dito ang respondent nila ay mga adolescents o yung mga dalaga o kaya mga nagbibinata? O kaya naman ang respondent nyo ba ay mga teacher? Okay? So these are the things that we consider in terms of people. Alright. So again, what are the difference between the quantitative and qualitative research? Now, let's proceed with things. Of course, these things, no, bagay. Okay. In terms of behavioral sciences, most likely we minimize using these tools of research. No? Ang ginagamit talaga natin most likely is yung behavioral, emotional, and psychological factors o yung yung mga intangible things na masabi natin. Pero yung things, these are tools of research when it comes to hard sciences, more likely with, okay lang Mark, more likely with our field of sciences na hard sciences nga, gaya ng engineering, o kaya naman other field of expertise which includes object like rocks, soils, o building, molecules, atoms, mga biological sciences, o kaya naman mga nursing students, kaya naman mga medical students, no, which includes these tangible objects. Okay? Pero sa behavioral sciences, we are more of emotion, psychological factors. So, can we also include records? So, let's say, for example, you will be using other tools of research. You want to explore the journals, letters, kaya naman documents, statements, as well as paintings or other factors that may involve records. Yan. Now, we have this most behavioral sciences, more particularly with Hume's. No? So in this category are research problems relating to concept, theories, perceptions, opinions, and beliefs, reactions, issues, poetry, and political cartoons. Okay, so we are more of these, the thoughts, the ideas that are intangible, hindi nahahawakan, di ba? Kapag tayo nagpapasurvey ng personality, hindi naman natin nahahawakan yung personality. Masaya ba siya? Nahahawakan mo ba yung saya? Hindi. Naobserbahan mo ba yung saya? Depende. So we will be using a standardized tool o kaya yung mga survey form in order for us to understand yung mga psychological factor na ito. Diba? Yung mga survey form ninyo, I feel sad most of the time. I feel good most of the time. Now, these questions answer these research proposal that we have, yung thoughts and ideas that we have. Okay. So, dynamics and energy, most likely they are being used with, again, physical sciences, physics. Yung mababasa ninyo, mapapansin nyo rito, merong metabolism, chemical reactions, radiation, radio, microwave transmissions, quantum mechanics, diba? Hydrodynamics, hydrologic cycles, atomic, and other factors or tools. Now, we will be proceeding with linking data and methodology. Ano ba ang kinalaman ng mga datos na meron tayo at ng mga metodo na meron tayo? Okay? Pag sinabi natin mga datos, ito yung mga bagay na kinokolekta natin sa mga respondents natin. And we also use different methodology. Okay? Pag sinabi natin metodo, di ba? Meron tayong method o kaya meron tayong pamamaraan na ginagamit. Tayo ba ay magtatanong-tanong? Tayo ba ay mag-interview? Tayo ba ay magpapasagot ng survey? So hindi na tayo magpapasagot ng survey. For example, gusto niyo mag-interview o kaya naman gusto niyo mag-obserba. Yan. Ayun yung pamamaraan ng pangungulekta natin ng mga datos. Nasusundan ba ako? Ngayon, kapag nangolekta kayo ng mga datos, it is important for us to know what methods of research that we will use. O kaya naman, hindi posible na mag-interview kayo online kasi walang access ng internet yung mga respondent ninyo. Okay? So, pwede kayong pumunta doon sa mismong lugar ng kanilang tinitirhan. O kaya naman magtatanong-tanong kayo doon o kaya makikipanirahan kayo doon. Yan. O kaya mag-obserba kayo. Di ba nga sa school, kapag nasa loob kayo ng classroom, bago pa lamang kayo, nag-obserba kayo. So, yun yung pamamaraan ninyo ng pagkolekta ng datos. Pumapasok ba si teacher? Pumapasok ba yung mga classmate ko? Late pumasok yung mga classmate ko. Late pumasok si teacher. Ako, ngayon magko-conclude ka na ngayon. Ano ba ang pamamaraan na ginagamit natin bilang mga researcher? Yan ang tanong natin. Okay. So we have the quantitative and qualitative research, diba? So what is the purpose of study as well as the process that we use with the quantitative and qualitative research? So you can look for this one. So what is the purpose of the research? Most likely in quantitative research, we want to explain and predict and to confirm, validate, or test the theory. Yun yung ginagamit natin, di ba? Binibilang natin. Saan ba papunta yung mga numero? Saan ba papunta yung mga datos natin? Pataas ba yung trend? Pababa ba yung trend? Yan. So, quantitative research wants us to understand the trend of the numbers that the respondents are giving. Yan. Halimbawa, napansin ninyo na tumataas yung demand ng face shield o kaya face mask. Tapos gusto niyo mag-business. Kayo ba ay kukuha ng mga supply dahil tumataas din yung demand? Yan. Para ba makasabay kayo sa trend ng pagtaas o pagbebenta ng mga face shield at face mask? O pwede rin naman yun. O kaya naman tinitingnan muna ninyo kung gaano kadalas yung kung gaano kadalas ang pagpasok ng pera kapag ganitong business ang hawak ninyo. Now, quantitative research again tries us to let us know about the quantity ang bilang. Diba? Kapag qualitative naman, it has to describe and explain or explore or interpret, most likely build theory. Yan. Sa qualitative research naman, ang pagkakaiba nila, we want to know the happening or the phenomena in terms of social sciences that is occurring within the situation. Okay, so that is the difference between the quantitative and qualitative in terms of the purpose. Yeah. Okay. So nature of the research process as well as data like and how are they connected. So you can see the summary right here. So what are the findings communicated? Again, kapag quantitative, numbers yan. Kapag qualitative, more of words, phrases, yan. More of statistics naman, o kaya naman data or aggregated data, quantitative. Formal, voice, scientific style, kapag quantitative yan. Kapag naman qualitative, qualitatibo, ibig sabihin, ano yung quality ng grupo, ano yung quality ng data na meron ka. Okay. So halimbawa, gusto mong malaman yung pamumuhay ng isang community. Ano yung pamumuhay ng mga profesyon sa ganitong larangan? Qualitative ang gagamitin mo in terms of the normative or the personal voice, kung paano sila magsalita. Okay, halimbawa, gusto mo malaman kung paano magsalita ang mga members ng LGBTQ. Ayan, mag-i-interview ka, o kaya naman you have to summarize all of the characteristics that they exhibit during the interview. Now, you want to take note kung paano talaga magsalita sila. Ayan. Meron silang mga lingwahe that different with the normal language, different from their community. So that is the difference between the quantitative and qualitative research. Okay. So in terms of quantitative and qualitative, you want to consider your own comfort. Yan. Saan ka ba mas komportable na assumption? More of qualitative ba or quantitative? Kasi kapag quantitative, so you have to look for the strategies as well as the statistical tool that you want to use. Consider the audience for your study. Alamin mo, accessible ba ang mga respondent mo when you want to study this group? So you want to consider as well the nature of your research question. Okay. Also, you want to consider the extensiveness of the related literature, the depth of what you wish to discover, as well as the consider the amount of time you have available for conducting the study. Now, the difference between the quantitative and qualitative research in terms of using time is that qualitative research more likely consumes a lot of time compared to quantitative. Sir, hindi ba mas madali yung yung qualitative kasi po yun? Parang usap-usap lang po yun. Ay, hindi. So, in terms of qualitative research, we have different tools and designs in order for us to interpret the data. So, can you imagine from raw na pagsasalita nila, ibig sabihin kung paano sila magsalita, you have to summarize all of them and then you try to make sense of the categories of the language that they use. Yeah. So, marami pang pagdadaanan kapag qualitative research, which we may discuss in the next topics na pag-uusapan natin. Kapag naman quantitative naman, you have to summarize the numbers as well as the factors involved. No? You have to summarize and of course, you have to give some insight about the numbers, make sense of it. Ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng mga numero na ito, ng mga datos na ito? Now, you will provide conclusion as well as recommendation about the findings of your study. Ayan. So, yun yung pagkakaiba ng quantitative at qualitative research. Yeah. So, you want to consider as well to which you are willing to interact with people in your study. Okay? So, kapag ka-qualitative research, kailangan makipag-usap ka talaga doon. Time-consuming talaga yon. You have to exhaust all of the data na makukuha mo coming from the respondent. Hindi yan yung kapag ka nagpa-survey ka, kung makukuha mo kagad yung datos kasi yung iba, ang ginagawa, inuhulaan yung mga data which we might have a invalid result. Invalid, ibig sabihin, lalabas dun sa resulta na walang relationship o kaya naman walang patutunguhan yung datos na nakuha mo kasi hinulaan lang. So probably you might consider as well kung willing ka ba na makipag-usap ng matagal kapag ka sa interview. So unlike quantitative research, magpapasurvey ka and all, tapos makukuha mo kagad yung datos na kailangan mo, you have to interpret na lang. Unlike kapag qualitative research interview mo, ino-note mo, tapos you have to record all of the data as well as the coding. Nagko-code ka pa talaga doon kung ano yung mga datos na nakuha mo. Now, are you willing to interact with in person o kaya naman makikipag-usap ka, matitake mo ba yun? Okay. So consider as well the extent to which you feel comfortable working without much structure. So consider your ability to organize and draw inferences from a large body of information and consider your writing skills. Yan. Kasi kapag qualitative, yan, medyo madugo talaga pag qualitative research, you have to write and write and again and again. Yan, so yan yung sa qualitative research yan. So yeah, meron tayong mga common research methodology, meron tayong action research, case study. So you can just look for this presentation right here. I have uploaded it already. Content analysis, correlational research. Okay? Nababalikan pa ba natin kung anong ibig sabihin ng correlational research? Again, correlation, ibig sabihin, you want to know the relationship. Design-based research, developmental, ethnography, meron din tayong experimental as well as ex post facto research. Yan, grounded theory, these are qualitative research. Historical, qualitative research na yan. Observation, pati yung pag-obserba natin, ano yan, considered as a research methodology rin yan. It falls under qualitative research, as well as phenomenological and quasi-experimental research. Survey research naman yung iba. So, ang binigay ko sa inyong assignment o ang binigay ko sa inyong methodology, itong survey research. So, this is a quantitative. Binibilang ninyo kung ano yung mga factors as well as the things that we might consider with our topic. Punta na tayo ngayon sa validity of methods. Okay, valid ba? Ayan. Tama ba yung gagamitin natin mga metodo kapag tayo ay magko-conduct ng study o tayo mangolekta ng study? Now we have internal validity. In terms of internal validity, a research study is the extent to which its design and the data it yields allow the researcher to draw accurate conclusions about cause and effect and other relationships within the data. Yan. Yung nakuha mong datos, yan, doon ka lang sa loob ng data na yon. Sometimes participants in research study change their behavior simply because they know they are in a research study. Yan. Ito yung problema madalas ng mga researcher. Kapag sila ay nagko-conduct ng study, minsan nagsisinungaling o kaya naman hindi nagsasabi ng totoo yung mga tao. O di ba kapag pupunta ng lugar, ayan. Ikaw ba ay merong nakasalamuhan na merong COVID o kaya naman lugar na merong COVID? Ang nilalagay minsan, no. Kasi natatakot tayo, baka mamaya i-judge tayo, baka mamaya i-quarantine tayo. Tama ba? So most likely, it is explained by what we call the Hawthorne effect. Yung Hawthorne effect na yan, alam nila na merong tumitingin sa kanila o alam nila na merong magbabasa ng ginagawa nila kasi, yun nga, dahil dito, imamanipulate nila yung datos o yung response nila. Sige nga. Magbigay nga kayo ng example ng binago ninyo yung behavior ninyo. Sige, additional points sa recitation ninyo. Binago ninyo yung behavior ninyo o yung tendency ninyo kasi alam ninyo merong nakatingin sa inyo. Sige nga, give nga kayo ng example. Halimbawa, alam ninyo nag-gradean kayo kapag umattend kayong klase o kaya naman kapag nagre-recite kayo. Hawthorne effect yun. Alam niyo kasi merong tumitingin sa inyo. Merong nagre-record ng responses ninyo. Tama? O kaya naman, merong quiz. Di ba? Kapag kayo nasa, kapag ka nasa, tawag dito, face-to-face class, di ba? Hindi mo alam yung solution, pero nag-iikot-ikot si ma'am. Ang gagawin mo, kunyari may ginagawa ka. Kunyari, may sinusolve ka. Yan, ang nangyayari ngayon, you are trying to manipulate your response, di ba? You're trying to avoid the inconvenience of bakit hindi ka sumasagot ng solution? Hindi mo alam yung solution, no? So, gagawin mo, you will try to manipulate your behavior. So, this is explained by Hawthorne effect. Alam natin na meron nanonood sa atin, alam natin that we are being studied, which is why, we try to manipulate our tendency. O kaya naman, kapag ka nandiligaw, o kaya naman merong nililigawan, di ba, nagpapagwapo kayo. O kaya dati naman, hindi kayo naghihilamos, pero naghihilamos na kayo ngayon. O kaya naman, nagtututbrush kayo. Kasi you know that is someone is evaluating you. O dati hindi ka naman nagpo-perfect. Okay lang. 5 minutes. O sige. Magbigay nga kayo ng example na kung saan binabago ninyo yung tendency ninyo kasi merong nag-evaluate sa inyo. Okay. Bawa sa mga magulang natin, di ba? Kapag kayo ay nasa online class, talagang pinapakita ninyo nag-aaral talaga kayo. Binubuksan ninyo lahat ng mga PDF file ninyo, binubuksan ninyo yung mga learning materials ninyo. Okay? Pero this is because someone is evaluating us. Diba? O kaya naman, nagpapakita na tayo ay we are well-behaved. Pero kapag kasama natin yung mga kaibigan natin, kasama natin yung mga tao na komportable tayo, we are in different mode. So yun yung tinatawag natin na Hawthorne effect. Someone is evaluating us, which is why we tend to change our behavior or our responses. So gaya ng pagsagot ng survey form, minsan, ang mga respondent, they try to manipulate what they respond. Okay? Ayaw nila na ma-judge sila. Ayaw nila na, ayan, ano siguro to tungkol dito sa ganito. Ibayin ko yung response ko. No? So, ayun yung tendency ng ibang mga tao. Kayo, di ba, pagka nagsasagot kayo, minsan hinuhulaan ninyo. O kaya naman, hindi naman titingnan yan. O yan. Minsan binabago natin yung tendency natin. Okay. So to evaluate our internal validity, we have different approaches. Okay. So we have a controlled laboratory study. Okay. We carefully design what would be the sequence of the experiment that we're trying to conduct. Now, in terms of controlled laboratory study, we try to manipulate or lessen the extraneous variables that we have in our study or in our intervention. As much as possible, kung maingay yung room ng eksperimento, mabawasan natin yung ingay. Halimbawa, nakaka-apekto ito sa attention ng mga respondent. O kaya naman kapag ka nag-entrance exam. Sino dito yung nag-entrance exam tapos nasa hallway sila? Naranasan niyo ba 'yon? Yung nasa hallway kayo tapos may maingay, tapos merong mga kotse na dumadaan, 'di ba? Parang nakaka-distract. So in terms of internal validity, now if you are considering the extraneous factor, ibig sabihin yung mga nasa labas na factor na nakaka-apekto with the intervention, you are trying to lessen these factors na nakaka-apekto dun sa performance. We also have double-blind experiment. Now, the double-blind experiment, 2 or more different interventions are presented. Okay? So with neither the participants in the study nor the people administering the intervention, such as the teachers, research assistants, knowing which interventions various participants are receiving. Okay? Kapag sinabi nating double-blind experiment, dalawa yung intervention na gagamitin mo. Pero, hindi alam ng mga respondent o nung experimenter o assistant experimenter kung alin doon yung totoong experiment. Yan. So, double-blind experiment ang tawag doon. Para hindi niya mamanipulate yung yung tendency niya. Ito yung gagamitin niya, double-blind experiment. Okay. Meron naman tayong unobtrusive measure. Pag sinabi natin unobtrusive measure, hindi mahahalata ng respondent na siya ay pinag-aaralan. Okay? So people are observed in such a way that they don't know their actions are being recorded. Yan. Hindi natin alam na tayo naka-record. Hindi natin alam na tayo pala ino-obserbahan. Hindi natin alam na tayo pala ini-evaluate. Hindi natin alam na tayo pala ay ginigrade. This is what we call an obtrusive measure. Yes, okay? So sometimes we consider this as unethical kasi hindi alam ng research, hindi alam ng respondent na siya pala ay nire-record. O ba't mo ako ni-record? Tapos nasa study na ako, pinablish mo sa pinablish mo sa journal na ako yung respondent niya na. Unethical minsan 'yon. Okay? So we offer two real examples to illustrate. So in one case, a university library measured student and faculty use of different parts of the library by looking at the wear and tear patterns on the carpet. So in another situation, researchers of U.S. National Park Service look at the hikers' frequency of using different hiking trails. Okay? So sometimes they are being used in order for the researchers to understand the sequence or the patterns of behavior of these individuals without really the consent of these respondents. So kaya naman yung datos na dumadaloy doon sa or traffic within the target local. Of course, you have to communicate it after the experiment or after the intervention or after the research. Yan. Pwede rin naman yun as long as yun yan, you have this consent after the research na. Okay. So we have the triangulation. So triangulation, multiple sources of data are collected. Pag sinabi natin triangulation, meron tayong resources coming from different people. Halimbawa, kinausap mo yung estudyante, tapos ang sabi niya, "Nako sir, hindi naman po ako yung gumawa niyan." Yan. Okay, pininiwala mo siya, hindi siya yung gumawa. Pero you will be having different citations or you have different resources to understand the behavior of the child, of that student. Kakausapin mo yung teacher, kakausapin mo yung nanay o yung parents, kakausapin mo yung mga kapatid niya, kakausapin mo yung mga kaibigan niya. This is what we call triangulation. Okay? So ngayon, you have evidences na taliwas o opposite ng sinasabi ng bata. Now you can prove that the child must have a problem with the behavior or with the response that he or she had given. Okay? Okay. Punta naman tayo sa external validity. Okay? Unlike internal, so napaka-opposite nila. So external validity of research study is the extent to which its results apply to situations beyond the study itself. So in other words, the extent to which the conclusions drawn can be generalized to other contexts. Hindi lang siya totoo para sa study mo. Pwede mo rin siyang i-extend outside your study. Sabihin, totoo ito sa iba pang mga tao, sa iba pang konteksto. Okay? So we have a real-life setting. We also have a representative sample and replication in different contexts. Okay. So this is how we try to evaluate the external validity. So in terms of qualitative research validity, we have extensive time in the field, analysis of outliers and contradictory instances, and thick description. We also have acknowledgement of personal biases. So dapat alam natin na hindi tayo competent kapag ganito yung respondent natin, kinakabahan tayo kapag sila yung respondent natin. We have to admit that. Okay? So rather than claim to be an objective, impartial observer, a researcher describes personal belief and attitude. So instead of writing what is really happening there, so we might as well be influenced by the personal biases. Now we will want to understand our biases because it has an effect with the intervention o kaya naman during the time na ikaw ay nag-experiment o ikaw ay nagpapa-survey, wala kang pakialam sa mga respondent mo, and it will affect the way the respondents behave as well as the procedure flow. No? Kasi minsan, na-experience nyo ba yung kapag ka nagtitest kayo, yung teacher ninyo ay masyadong mahigpit o kaya naman, tawag dito, parang terror teacher siya. Minsan nakatakot sumagot no? Parang na mamamind block tayo. Parang kapag gusto mo sumagot o gusto mo mag-recite, ayaw mo nang sumagot kasi yun nga, parang kinakabahan ka mag-recite kasi baka sabihin ni teacher, mali yung sagot ko. Now, the personal biases there is that the teacher must understand that it is affecting the way the students perform in the classroom. So, which is why they have to understand these biases that they have. Baka kasi mamaya, ang bias ng teacher is that yung mga estudyante niya hindi talaga kayang gawin yung trabaho, kaya naman they have their own biases. Now, these biases again affect the way they behave, affect the students' behavior with the within the classroom. Ayan. So, respondent validation. So, in respondent validation, a researcher takes conclusions back to the respondent in the study and asks why simply. So, do you agree with my conclusions? No? So, do they make sense based on your own experiences? So, this has something to do with the validation. Tinatanong natin kung nag-a-agree ba kayo sa sa study ko, nag-a-agree ba kayo sa conclusion ko, sa assumption ko, o kaya sa hypothesis ko. Now, this must be this must be cross-checked by the researcher. We also have feedback from others. Yeah, let's define measurement. Again, we're trying to learn the measurement. No? We're trying to measure not just the physical structures of the things that we can that we can touch or we can measure in terms of its physicality. In terms of social sciences, ang mini-measure natin are behaviors as well as psychological factors. Now, measurement is limiting the data of any phenomenon. Okay? So substantial or insubstantial, so that those data may be interpreted and ultimately compared to a particular qualitative or quantitative standard. Now, measurement tries let us understand that the data that we have limitations as well. Okay? So, substantial phenomenon, ito yung sinasabi natin na nahahawakan natin. Physical entities. Ayan. Pagka nagsukat ka ng kahoy, nasusukat mo. O kaya naman kapag tinimbang mo, natitimbang mo. Kapag sinilip mo sa microscope, na may measure mo. O kaya naman kapag tinignan natin sa ultrasound, nakikita. So these are substantial or physical entities. Okay? Obvious basis in the physical world. Okay? Pag sinabi natin emotion, hindi naman natin kagad na may measure yan, tama? O kaya naman, we try to observe them by means of trying to read the face of the person. O malungkot ka ba ngayon? Diba? Nakikita natin na malungkot siya. O kaya nabubor ka na ba ngayon? O po sir, nabubor na po ako pakitapos na po yung lecture. Pwede naman ganon. So possible that we can observe them. So these are insubstantial phenomena. Okay. So insubstantial phenomenon exists only as concept, ideas, opinions, feelings, or other intangible entities. So we might attempt to measure the economic health of business, the degree to which students have learned, or the extent to which people value physical exercise. Okay. So we seek data coming from these things in terms of survey form o kaya naman interview questionnaire, di ba? Kapag kasusukatin natin yung intelligence ninyo, gaano kaya katalino ang estudyante natin dito? Bibigyan ninyo ng test. Yan, pen and paper o kaya pasasagutan ninyo ng quiz, pasasagutan ninyo ng long quiz o kaya sa midterm examination, meron silang exam na sasagutan. So hindi natin nasusukat kasi yung talino in terms of its physicality. So we try to assess them in terms of tools that we have. So, yun mga nabanggit natin. Okay. So, halimbawa, yan yan, insubstantial phenomena, yung relationship ng bawat isa sa atin. Hindi naman natin nasusukat yung relationship unless we will use tools of sociometric. Ayan, yung sociogram na sinasabi natin. We can draw a chart or sociogram of these interpersonal reactions. Okay? So likely, sino ba ang madalas mong kinakausap? Gaano ba karami ang kinakausap mo sa classroom? Ayan, binibilang kung ilan yung nakakausap mo halimbawa. Now, you are making sense of it. Na, okay, itong taong to has a good interpersonal interaction or has a good interpersonal relationship with his or her classmates. Kasi nalalaman natin with this kind of matrix, let's say for example, si Gretchen. Gaano karami ang may gusto kay Gretchen? Isa, dalawa. Okay? Apat, halimbawa, dalawa. O kaya kay Joe. Ilan ang may gusto kay Joe? O ilan yung nakakausap ni Joe? O, halimbawa, dalawa din. Si Greg, isa. Si Sarah, isa. Si Peter, isa. O kaya naman si Jeff, apat. O, si Jeff pala yung pinakamaraming nakakausap o merong nai-interact within the classroom, halimbawa. Yan. Kung kayo tatanungin ko, sino ba ang pinaka nakakausap ninyo sa classroom? Yan. So pwede, sabihin niyo si ganitong classmate o kaya si ganyang classmate. O kaya sino paborito ninyong teacher o sino paborito ninyong classmate ninyo, bibilangin natin. Halimbawa, ito si Sir Dolis, hindi ko gusto yan, negative 1, halimbawa. O kaya naman 0. Ganyan. So ganito yung sociometric matrix that we have in order for us to understand the non-physical things that we try to measure. Isa lang ito sa mga approach. No? Pero pag kayo ay nag-research na, you will be using survey form. Ayan. Kaya nga pinapahanap ko kayo ng mga standardized tools which are all posted in our classroom na dito. Makikita niyo doon na meron na kayong mga listahan ng mga topic as well as tools na pwede ninyong gamitin with your survey form. So, kailangan tingnan natin kung akma ba sa values niyo. Gusto ko ba talaga itong itong topic na to, itong pipiliin ko, halimbawa. Yan. Ito ba ay valid? Ito ba ay reliable? Pag sinabi natin valid and reliable, merong mga studies na nagpapatunay that it is valid and of course, it is reliable. Yan. Now, we also have measures, levels of measurement. Again, we have nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Pag sinabi natin nominal, it is a scale that measures only in terms of names. Okay? Meron tayong pangalan. Halimbawa, so, sukat mo, ano ba yung pangalan nito? Ito yung grupo ng mga babae. Ito yung grupo ng mga lalaki. O kaya ito yung mga grupo ng member ng LGBTQ. O kaya naman ito yung grupo ng ganitong age. Ayan. From age 18 to 24, 25 to 30, o kaya naman 31 to 35, so on and so forth. So, nominal ang tawag natin doon. So, scale that measures in terms of such values. Okay, more or less larger is smaller but without specifying the size of the interval, ordinal naman ang tawag natin doon. Okay, from ranking. Pag sinabi natin sino ang first, sino ang second, sino ang third, ganyan. So, ordinal ang tawag natin doon. So, enables one also to determine median, percentile rank, and rank correlation. Okay. Pag sinabi naman natin interval, ang ginagamit natin dito ay yung average, standard deviation, product moment correlation. So, ito yung gagamitin natin sa research ninyo. Yan, yung interval. Yan. So, a scale that measures the terms of equal intervals or degree of differences but with an arbitrary established 0 point that does not represent nothing or something. Okay? So a scale that measures in terms of equal intervals and on absolute 0 point ratio naman ang tawag natin dyan. Okay. Interval ang ginagamit natin sa psychology or sa social sciences inventories because there is no zero personality. Lahat tayo mayroong personality. Kaya nagsisimula tayo sa scale of 1. Walang 0. 1 to 5, o kaya naman 1 to 7. Ganyan. From scale of 1 to 7, gaano ka na nabobore kay Sir Donis? 7, sir. Ayan. O kaya naman, gaano ka na nabobore sa subject na ito? 1. Kasi gustong-gusto ko po yung subject ninyo, sir. Wow, galing naman na student natin. O kaya naman, ratio, scale, o 0. Meron yung 0. Validity and reliability measurement. Again, pag sinabi natin validity, it has something to do with the measurement of instrument in the extent which the instrument measures what it is intended to measure. Pag sinukat natin yung timbang, dapat timbang ang lalabas yan, hindi height. Okay? Pag sinukat natin yung temperature mo, dapat ang lumabas dyan, temperature, hindi timbang, so on and so forth. Kapag ka sa psychology naman o sa social sciences, if you want to measure extraversion, you have to use tool for extraversion. If you want to use, or if you want to seek life satisfaction instead, you want to use tool for life satisfaction. Yun yung sinasabi na valid na tool. Okay? Yun yung tamang panukat. Halimbawa, sinukat mo kung gaano karami yung 1 litro. Tapos gumamit ka ng ibang panukat para doon. Siguro hindi mo makukuha yun kasi iba yung panukat mo. Hindi siya panukat ng kung ilang litro. Kundi kung ano yung timbang niya. Halimbawa, iba pang scale of measurement. Okay, so phase validity, meron tayong content validity, yan. So phase validity, to which or on surface, instrument looks like it is measuring a particular characteristic. Mukhang ito yung sinusukat niya. Yan yung space validity. Pag sinabi naman natin content validity, which a measurement instrument is a representative of sample of the content area, yung mga domain being measured, di ba? Sinabi natin dati na kapag ka-life satisfaction, halimbawa yung mini-measure, meron niyang iba't ibang domain, meron niyang iba't ibang sub-factor. Okay? So, kung kayo ay gagamit ng tool or research tool, you have to look for the domains. Ito ba yung gusto kong sukatin? Ito ba yung mga factors or subdomain na hinahanap ko sa research ko? And we also have criterion, validity from the word itself, criteria. Meron kayong pinagkukunan na iba pang mga measure or tools to understand your own tool or your own results. Meron din naman tayong construct validity. Okay, characteristic that cannot be directly observed but is assumed to exist based on patterns in people's behavior. So, construct. Meron din naman tayong table of specification. So with this table of specification, we want to establish document validity. A researcher often construct a two-dimensional grid. Meron din tayong multi-trait and multi-method approach. 2 or more different characteristics are each measured using 2 or more different approaches. Yan. Meron din tayong judgment by a panel of experts. Okay. Punta naman tayo sa reliability. Pag sinabi nating reliability, sinukat mo ngayon, tapos sinukat mo ulit siya next week. Dapat reliable ang tool mo. Okay. Dapat same result pa rin ang ipapakita niya. Reliable. So reliability is the consistency with which a measurement instrument yields a certain consistent result when the entity being measured hasn't changed. Halimbawa, sinukat mo kung gaano kakabigat ngayon. Tapos, next week, sinukat mo kung gaano kakabigat. Okay? Alam mo sa sarili mo na nag-diet ka, alam mo sa sarili mo na nag-exercise ka, pero bakit parang nag-increase yung bigat mo gamit yung panimbang na yon? Reliable ba o hindi yung panimbang na yon? Diba? Again, merong timbangan. Tapos, yung timbangan na yon, sinukat mo ngayong week na to. Tapos, next week, sinukat mo ulit. Pero nag-exercise ka, tapos nag-diet ka, and all. Pero nag-increase yung weight mo. Reliable ba yung panimbang na yun o hindi? Depende sir kung nag-cheat po. Depende sir kung kumain po siya. Nag-diet po kunyari pero ano po, kumain naman po. Possible po na reliable pa rin po yun. Pwedeng hindi. No? Pwedeng hindi kasi hindi akma yung tinimbang niya dahil nag-bawas ka ng timbang, nag-exercise ka, tapos nagpapayat ka and all. So possible na hindi. Possible din naman na oo, kasi sir, 1 week lang naman po. Possible din naman. Now, the notion of reliability, it has something to do with consistency of the result. Kapag kasinukat natin kung gaano kayo katalino ngayon, tapos kung gaano kayo katalino next week, o kaya naman after 6 months or after a year, so it has to come up with the same result. Kaya kung stable yung intelligence na meron kayo. Okay? So meron tayong iba't ibang klase ng reliability. Meron tayong inter-rater reliability. Meron mga nag-evaluate. Halimbawa sa tawag dito sa isang okay, sa isang singing contest, di ba kapag merong singing contest, meron yung mga judges. Yung mga judges, nire-rate nila isa-isa yung mga contestant nila. Halimbawa, 3 yung rater. 3 yung magja-judge. Kung sila ba ay para doon sa contest na yun, sila ba ay panalo o hindi. O pares ba yung score nila o hindi. Depende dun sa binibigay nila na points. Kaya naman, gaano karami ang nasuntok ni Pacquiao dun sa kalaban niya. So dapat itong mga rater na to, almost the same ang results na ipinapakita nila. Okay? To extent to which 2 or more individuals evaluating the same product or performance. Yan, Yung sinabi nating inter-rater, merong mga nag-evaluate doon sa product o kaya sa performance. Pag sinabi naman natin test, retest, reliability, pinag-exam kita ngayon, tapos after 6 months, pinag-exam ulit kita na personality mo. Now, the results of your personality should come up with almost the same result kung reliable ang tool na to. Kapag sinabi naman natin equivalent forms sa reliability, meron kayong form A at meron kayong form B. Yan. Form A and form B. Okay. Sa klase, halimbawa, binigyan kayo ng set A tapos set B na examination. Parehas yung content nila, pero magkaiba yung pagkaka-construct ng question nila. Yan yung sinasabi ng form A and form B. Yan. Naka-experience na ba kayo ng sumagot ng set A and set B sa mga klase ninyo? Nung college ako, meron kaming algebra test nun. Meron kaming 4. Imagine na, 4 na equivalent form. Pare-pare sila ng content, pero magkakaiba yung tanong na tinatanong ko. So, meron din naman tayong internal consistency reliability within a single instrument yields similar results. Okay. Pagka sinukat natin yung extraversion ninyo, we have to come up with the reliability results of a significant amount. Okay, significant result. Most likely, we use Cronbach's alpha. Okay, Cronbach's alpha to measure the reliability of a result. Now, we also have standardization. Instruments should always be administered in a consistent fashion. In other words, there should be standardization in use of instrument from one situation or individual to the next. Pag sinabi natin standardization, kung paano kinonduct sa isang classroom yung test, dapat ganun din i-conduct sa classroom ninyo o kaya sa isa pang classroom. This is what we call standardization. Hindi pwedeng sa isang classroom, binasahan ng instruction. Sa isang classroom, binigay lang yung mga material. Tapos sa isang classroom, nagbigay ng examination. So dapat pare-parehas yan. Kung 9 a.m. nag-start, sa next classroom dapat 9 a.m. din. So on and so forth. No? So standardization. Yan. Meron naman tayong pilot study. Pag sinabi natin pilot study, it is your first attempt to measure the factors or the tools that you will utilize them. Okay? So try out a particular procedure, measurement, instrument, and methods of analysis. Pag sinabi natin pilot study, magbibigay kayo ng paunang pag-aaral. Yan, pilot study. Kumbaga, you try to measure, halimbawa, yung reliability or consistency of your tool. Now you want to run the Cronbach's alpha, and then you have to come up with the reliability analysis that is significant. Okay. Okay. So again, we have ethical issues in the research. Okay. Ito yung sabi natin na informed consent. So ano ba laman ng inyong informed consent? Pag gumawa kayo ng informed consent, dapat nandyan yung goal o yung objective ninyo. Okay? So it's a written language that its readers can easily read or understand. Hindi yan yung parang kontrata minsan na hindi natin maintindihan kung ano ba yung sinasabi doon. O dapat kapag ka nagre-research kayo, naiintindihan o nauunawaan ng nagbabasa kung ano yung goal ninyo. Bakit ninyo gusto kaming pasagutin ng survey form ninyo? Hindi nyo sasabihin dyan na, meron kasi kaming ibibigay na candy. O kaya na, kasi meron kaming ibibigay na, na bayad sa inyo. Hindi ganon. The objective of your research has something to do with the possible results or possible implication of your study and description of what participation will involve in terms of activities and duration. Gaano katagal namin sasagutan ito? 10 minutes ba? 15 minutes ba? 30 minutes ba? Yan. So statement indicating that participation is voluntary. Okay. Hindi nyo pwedeng pilitin yung respondent ninyo na sumagot. Natatakutin pa ninyo. Pag hindi nyo sinagutan to, sasabihin namin sa teacher ko, dinamin nyo pa yung teacher mo. Merong karapatan yung mga respondent ninyo na mag-withdraw kapag kaayaw na nilang sagutan yung survey form ninyo. Karapatan nila yun. Hindi nyo sila pwedeng pilitin. Walang takutan na. A statement indicating that participation is voluntary and can be terminated at any time without penalty. Okay? Okay lang na sila ay mag-voluntary exit o kaya mag-voluntary participate doon sa inyong study. Okay, next. Description of any potential risk. Okay? Halimbawa, tungkol sa depression or suicide ang inyong study o inyong survey form. Pwede kayo mag-indicate doon ng clause o ng phrase na kung saan it has content that has something to do with triggers. No? Baka kasi mamaya, nagpa-survey kayo ng tawag dito ng trigger warning. Nagpa-survey kayo ng suicide inventory. Tapos yung pinasagutan nyo, mga suicidal pala o meron palang suicidal tendency, baka ma-trigger yung mga yan. O nagdulot pa kayo ng harm instead of enlightening the audience. So possible that you have to warn your respondent. Kasi baka mamaya, hindi nila ma-take yung binabasa nila. Bigla na lang nag-collapse. Bigla na lang hinimatay. O, bakit po kayo hinimatay? Hindi ko alam. Basahin mo yung survey form mo. Yan. So, ganun yun. So, importante na meron kayong mga potential risk or discomfort that participant might encounter. Yan. Tinanong ninyo halimbawa tungkol sa broken family. Ayan. Your perception about broken family. Tapos, yung mga respondent pala coming from broken family, baka matrigger sila. Baka instead na bigyan ka nila ng sagot, hulaan nila yan. O kaya naman, bahala ka na sa buhay mo. Yan na, sinagutan ko na lang. O sa'yo na yan. Okay, paano ka makakakuha ng valid at reliable na result? Nakakuha ba natin? So, importante yun ay description of potential benefits of the study. O ito naman, para sa inyo naman ito. This is to complete the requirement of our subject, research in daily life, mga ganyan. O kaya naman, magbibigay kayo ng mga implication ng study nyo na ito. This is to help the students to understand their life satisfaction, o kaya naman their extraversion or introversion tendency. Ano ba yung mga benefit bukod dun sa ibibigay ninyong pera? Huwag niyo ilalagay dun yung it will give these respondents candies and money. Huwag niyo ilalagay yun doon. Ang benefit, it has something to do with the objective of the study, okay? So, hindi niyo ilalagay doon na ang benefit po na ito ay magkakaroon po ng pera at candy po yung mga estudyante. Hindi ganon. Stick lang kayo sa objective ninyo at kung ano yung implication ng study ninyo in the long run. So, pwede. To improve the decision making of the school administrator. Pwede rin naman ganon. Pero pag ilalagay, yung walang kinalaman sa study ninyo. Okay. Next one, we have the researchers have to guarantee all responses will remain confidential and anonymous. Again, kapag gagawa kayo ng survey form, hindi required na ipalagay ninyo o ipa-answer ninyo kung ano yung pangalan nila. Sir, yung beneficiary po pwede both researcher. Yes, pwede yun. Researcher and respondents. O kaya naman, respondents' parents. Pwede rin naman kung related din doon. Researcher kasi, matatapos mo yung study mo. O kaya naman, future researcher, pwede rin naman yun. Kasi, the future researchers might have insight doon sa binabasa, doon sa ginawa mo. So, pwede rin naman ganon. O, di ba sabi dito again, your respondents must have confidentiality kapag sila ay sumagot. Okay? So, hindi dapat malalaman yung pangalan nila. Ay, nako, ito pa lang siya. Ano kaya pala ganito yan? Kasi ganyan yung sagot niya. O, pinagmulan pa ng chismis yung research ninyo. So, dapat anonymous or confidential yung pangalan nila. Hindi nyo ilalagay yan. Kaya nga minsan, di ba sa survey form nakalagay doon, name, open close parenthesis, optional. Pwede naman yon. Kung gusto ng respondent na ilagay yon, pwede rin naman. Pero lagay nyo doon, optional. Hindi required na ilagay ng respondent ang pangalan nila. Okay. Next one. Plus information about how the researcher can be contacted. Huwag ninyo ipalalagay paano ninyo yung contact number. So optional lang din yun. Kung gusto niyo magkaroon ng follow-up questions about the responses of the respondents, pwede naman maglagay kayo doon ng contact number. Optional lang yon. Okay? Individual or office that participants can contact if they have questions or concerns about the study. Okay? So kayo bilang mga researcher, merong mga tanong din yung mga respondent minsan. Bakit ganito yung question niya? Bakit ganyan yung study nila? Bakit kaya ganito yung objective nila? Ay, baka meron ako may ambag sa kanila. So, dapat ilalagay ninyo ron yung inyong email address kung saan kayo hahanapin. Sino ang hahanapin at ano-ano yung contact number ninyo. For more information about this study, please contact. Nakalagay yung pangalan ninyo, sino yung tatawagan, ano yung contact number, at ano yung email address. O kaya kung ayaw ninyo ng contact number o kaya naman ng pangalan ninyo makita, email address lang, pwede rin naman yun. Alright? Kaya naunawaan natin na ito yung mga ethical consideration kapag kayo ay nagko-conduct ng inyong study. Okay. So individuals or office, an offer to provide detailed information about the study. Possible that after you have gathered your information, interpreted it, you have defended it already, so possible that you might give them the summary of findings. Sir, paano po yun? Bibigyan pa po namin isa-isa. O pwede rin naman, naka-indicate yung email address kung saan nyo sila pwedeng i-contact. O kaya naman, you can publish it with ResearchGate. Familiar ba kayo sa ResearchGate? Hindi. Yung ResearchGate kasi, dito ninyo pwede i-upload yung material ninyo. Halimbawa, you have defended it already. So, others can see it. So, you publish it online. Ngayon may kita, nag-research, life satisfaction, o yan, tayong pangalan ninyo. So, you can be part of a research ng ibang tao o yung research ng ibang estudyante na, ay, naging inspirasyon ko yung ganitong research galing sa inyo. Pwede po ba namin makuha yung ganitong insight coming from your, yan. Kukuha sila ng insight coming from your research. Di ba parang masarap sa pakiramdam nung yung pangalan mo nasa ibang papel. Di ba? According to, ganyan, ganito. Yan. The results include, ganyan. So this is how we communicate to other researchers or other participants or respondents of our research. No? So you want to use your your email address in order for you to communicate with them. Okay. So please for the participant to sign the letter indicating agreement to participate. When children are asked to participate, their parents must read and sign the letter. Okay. Sa research proposal natin, we may not use the respondents na below 17. Siguro 18 pataas kasi most likely they have to sign the parents consent pa. Siguro 18 pataas na lang ang gamitin natin. Especially with the research tool that we have in order for us to avoid yung inconvenience. Okay? So this is an example of what we call the consent form. Medyo maliit siya, pero you can see it in your reference book. Okay? So ito yung example. Kapag kayo gagamit ng consent form, it is integrated with the instructions of your Google form. Okay? So hindi na kayo magpo-provide ng another form. Sir, ipapapirma pa po ba namin ito dun sa respondent? Yan. Meron na lang silang i-click na checklist kung sila ay nag-agree or disagree or magde-decline sa inyong research. Okay, let's try to evaluate your research. No? So, might your study present a physical risk or hazards to participant? Yan. Kapag ba sila ay nag-participate sa inyong study, will they get harmed? If so, list them. Tingnan muna ninyo kung meron bang harm. Meron bang trigger dun sa study ninyo. Might your study incur any psychological harm to all or for some participant? Yan, siguro merong threat sa self-esteem nila. Baka pagka binasa nila yan, bumaba yung self-esteem nila. Diba? So likely, you have to be careful with this one. If so, identify the specific forms of harm that might result. Okay? So will participants incur any significant financial cost? Gagastos ba sila kapag sila ay nag-participate sa inyong study? If so, how might you minimize, eliminate those costs? Dito, sa research proposal natin, hindi required na pagbayarin ninyo yung mga respondent ninyo. Ma'am, pasagot po tapos bayaran nyo na rin po ng 10 piso. Walang ganun wala maniningil sa inyo. So what benefits might your study have for participants? Ano ang pakikinabangan namin dito? Sabi ng mga participant. Una. Pangalawa, your discipline. Ano ang maiaambag nito sa social sciences and sa society at large? O pwede rin naman with your school. Ano ang pakikinabangan ng PTC dito? Yan. Malalaman ng mga taga-PTC, ganyan. Hindi naman sa English naman. Malaman ng mga taga-PTC that it is important for us to understand the mental health of our student. Pwede rin naman ganun. Okay. So, do you need to seek informed consent from participant? Okay, required ito informed consent. So, if you need to seek informed consent, how might you explain the nature and goals? Okay, so you have to include this with the instructions provided in your Google form. Pagka gumawa na kayo ng Google form ninyo as well as your survey form, dapat naka-integrate na ito. So possibly after midterm, I will give you the chance to make your own survey form with the use of the standardized tool na pinapahanap ko sa inyo. You just have to copy-paste it as well as the instructions and then the informed consent as well as the other factors that might involve in your study. So kung interesado kayo kung anong age nila, pwede ninyong ilagay yun. Kung interesado kayo kung saan sila nakatira, I mean sa anong municipality nila, or anong region nila. Possible naman kung importante sa inyo yun, o kaya naman yung gross income ng family nila, importante ba sa inyo yun, o sa study ninyo, pwede naman din ilagay yun. Okay? Okay. So what specific steps will you take to ensure participants' privacy? Yan. Paano natin masasabi na hindi magli-leak yung result o yung yung responses ng mga respondents ninyo. So ilagay ninyo ron that your privacy is very important for us. Thus, this may not disclose any information that you have provided. Yan. So mag-ano kayo doon, mangako kayo doon na hindi ninyo ipagkakalat yung nakuha ninyong datos sa kanila. So applicable, what format might a post-participation debriefing take? Okay. So debriefing is part of those unobtrusive unobtrusive approach. Gaya na banggit natin kanina, merong mga researchers o mga researches na nag-include ng unobtrusive approach. Doon sa unobtrusive approach na yon, hindi nila kailangan ng informed consent yet. After, bibigyan sila ng debriefing. Pero kayo, hindi na kayo gagamit ng debriefing. So what information should you include in your debriefing? Okay. I think this is the last part. So determining the practicality of the research. Okay. So kayo, kapag nag-propose kayo, nagpo-propose na kayo, with what areas with the problems deal? Okay, number 1, people. Yan, kasama yan. Pangalawa, thoughts and ideas. Yan, tama. Yun. So, people and thoughts and ideas yung ano ninyo, yung sample ninyo. Are data that reduce directly to the problem available for each the categories you have? Just check. Okay? What academic discipline is primarily concerned with the problem? Most likely, it is more of the psychology. What other academic disciplines or possibly other related to the problem? Okay? So, alam niyo kung ano yung mga related problems with your study. Okay, wag na ninyong lawakan. You have to delimit it. Again, you have to focus on what are the factors involved with the tools na gagamitin ninyo. Of course, what special qualification do you have as a researcher for this problem? Okay, so this is just a educational research, as well as how available are the data to you. Okay, kapag ba nag-collecta kayo, mamumundok pa ba kayo? O walang mamumundok sa inyo? Ma'am, mama, pinapaano po kami, pinagpapa-research po kami ni Sir Donis. Punta daw po kami sa ganito. Kasama ko po yung mga classmate ko. Walang ganun Baka mamaya kung saan kayo magpupunta. Ma'am, ano daw po, may research daw po kami. Kailangan po namin pumunta sa May COVID ngayon, huwag kayo naglalabas. Ang gagawin ninyo, you have to survey it online. Okay? Walang magpapaalam sa mga magulang nila. Nanay, sabi po ni Sir, ganito, magpapasurvey daw po kami sa Cavite. Andun kasi yung yung ka-group ko po, walang ganon. Lahat kayo, mag-interact kayo online lang muna. So, how available are the data to you? Available with permission, okay, available with great difficulty, or rarely available, or unavailable. So, dapat available itong mga data ninyo. Okay? So, how often are you personally in contact with the source of data? Okay. And will the data arise directly out of the situation you create? Okay. We also have, how do you plan to gather your data? So, most likely, you will use questionnaire and rating scale kung meron na kayong survey form na nakuha. Okay. Wala na magpapa-photocopy. Wala na gagawa niyan. Hindi rin interview and audio recording, walang ganyan. So specialized machine device, wala rin. So computer technology, you might use your laptop or desktop, or you can use your mobile phone or smartphone to create an online survey tool. Okay, so we also have, if you will need special equipment, do you have access to such equipment and skill to use it? Lahat ba dito marunong gumamit ng Google Form? So ako po hindi po ako marunong. Siguro to sa inyo next week. I mean dun sa sa paggawa natin ng survey form ninyo. Gawin natin yan. Okay. So what is the estimated cost in time, money to gather data? Okay, I think this may not necessary na mag-out pa kayo ng pera. Wala maglalabas ng pera hanggat maaari. Okay, what evidence do you have that the data you gather will be valid and reliable? Ay, paulit-ulit tayo sa valid and reliable. Dapat ang tool na gagamitin ninyo, merong related literature na nagsasabi, ito ay valid at ito ay reliable. Pag sinabi natin valid, para ba ito sa mga estudyante talaga? Kapag pa ginamit natin ito, para ba talaga sa mga ganitong age yan? Yan na. Yung isasabi natin na valid tool. Kasi baka mamaya, ginamit ninyo yung tool, hindi pala siya appropriate para sa ganitong age. Hindi pala siya appropriate para sa ganitong respondent. So, dapat valid. Yan. And lastly, as you review your response to this checklist, might any the factors you have just considered or perhaps any other factors hinder a successful completion? If so, isulat ninyo. Ano yung mga factors na pwedeng mag-hinder? Sir, ako po, yung mga classmate ko po, hindi po nagpa-participate. So, individual individual output ito. Okay, before we actually end our discussion this morning, tawagin muna natin mga students.